What's up, folks? This is Dan from Discern. It was a busy holiday weekend for me, right into a busy week, celebrating the 4th of July, went to a wedding, went to a baseball game, went to a concert, had multiple band practices for events coming up, and of course had to fit work in there. But you don't need my excuses. All you need to know is this is a slightly different video today than my usual. This video is my top 5 list of best albums in 2016 so far from the broad category that is Christian music. You know, music with Christian themes, Christian lyrics, music written by Christian artists. We are 6 months through the year, a good point to sort of stop and look back. And I've talked at length about each of these albums on the list, so I won't go into great detail on them, but I've got links in the description box both to hear these albums and to check out the reviews I did about them. So let's kick it off with number 5, Tyson Motsenbocker, Letters to Lost Loves. This singer-songwriter folk album is a record I will not soon forget. Tyson wrote this album after the death of his mother, a very affecting and heartbreaking event that he translated incredibly well through these songs. He really pulled back the curtains, gives you a stark and clear picture into his heart, and laid down some really weighty and powerful songs. From the very first track, In His Name, I was captivated by the honesty and the simple nature of the songwriting. The lyrics are just undeniably frank. When he says, "Oh, who, my God, have you been listening to?" It's a defining moment that sort of sets the tone for the rest of the album. And moments like this just carry through the record. The lyrics really drive the bus. They're the reason this album is on my list. The instrumental performances are great. They're touching, they're heartfelt, but they rely on the touching and heartfelt lyrics. I've listened to this album, numerous times. It's a tearful experience, and the more you sort of contemplate the lyrics, the closer you feel to Tyson, the more you feel like you understand him. And like I said, he translated his feelings in this album so well, it's impossible to not be affected by it. Number 4, Jonathan Ogden, By the Streams. This is a quiet and contemplative little album from the lead singer of the indie worship group Rivers and Robots. Short little EP, 4 tracks totaling 17 minutes. But I have come back to this one time and time again. It's a great place of rest for my soul. It's got a peaceful vibe that makes you slow down. The lightly played guitar and piano, lightly sung vocals, very intimate. It's clearly a solo record from Jonathan Ogden. The lyrics are pulled pretty directly from the Psalms, prayers and songs that use direct biblical phrasing. And in that way, this album actually functions sort of as a devotional tool. As the song Let Me Not Wander says, I will meditate on your word. These songs are basically a conduit for me to meditate on the truths from God's word. Overall, the songs here, they're just so pleasantly paced and calming. It really stuck with me. It's a great little EP. Number 3, King's Kaleidoscope, Beyond Control. I just talked about this last week, so I'll keep this short. This album of orchestral indie pop is basically Chad and Friends, more so than any of their past releases. These songs, and especially lyrics, they're specific to Chad Gardner, the lead singer. They are personal to him, to his experience, but only as a skilled and honest artist can. His personal feelings are completely relatable and identifiable to me and to many other listeners. He masterfully balanced the grief and the weight of our sin, both internal and external, and the pains in the world around us. He balanced that with the saving grace of the gospel, the good news of Jesus that gives us hope, it gives us joy. And so he takes you to the lowest of the lows and the highest of the highs. And it's all typified in the song A Prayer. And beyond the lyrics, King's Kaleidoscope is just as complex and layered as ever. But I feel like they tightened up their sound a little, kept everything under control, ironically, and more in the pocket. The grooves are tight, the performances are exhilarating, and the mix is skillfully balanced to let everything breathe. making a 10-piece band sound this tight is a skill on its own. Great album. Moving on, number 2, Audrey Assad, Inheritance. What struck me most about this album is how dramatic and full of emotion the music was. The lyrics, they're the foundation, with a lot of songs being old hymns or direct biblical phrases, but the music on these tracks are such elaborate, ornate compositions. I mean, you get lost in their beauty. And many times with music, lyrics are what make you react emotionally, whether in smiles or tears, because obviously words are the most direct form of communication. But on this album, I feel like the music spoke with just as much effectiveness as the lyrics. I felt compelled and moved simply by the instruments, simply by the performances. The compositions are so dynamic. I mean, sometimes they're full with horns and strings and a myriad of vocals, and at other times they're very bare and sparse with just simple piano or a single vocal. And the recordings and the mix are just stunning. The whole thing sounds beautiful and very impressive. And finally, number 1, Adam Young, Apollo 11. Now, you may not have seen this one coming, but let me explain. I remember loving Owl City back in 2008 or so. I was blown away by Ocean Eyes when it came out. I had been following him before that, but when that came out, it was electronic pop music at its most poppy. I mean, most sweet, most bright, to a fault, I'm sure some people would say. And then I thought his releases after that just got worse and worse. The magic was gone. And then to have him start this new Adam Young Scores project, where he writes instrumental scores based on historical events, I was pretty intrigued by that. I mean, I know Adam is a very prolific musician with a host of side projects and other musical outlets that he's done over the years. But this one was still a real shock. I just did not think Adam had it in him, I didn't realize how competent and able he is to flex his composer muscles. Unbelievably, he managed to do what, on his first release, what all composers are trying to do, to craft music that delivers a mood and a story that tells you something that impacts you without using words. This album, telling the story of the Apollo 11 mission, was so accurately put to music. I could feel the moments. I could see the story unfolding in my mind. And he did this without any pictures, without any video, as a typical movie composer would have. The pacing here was spot on. The arrangements were interesting and memorable. And the instrumental tones he used as well were unique and inspiring. I mean, there's a deep bellowing guitar tone, sometimes with a warm, crunchy overdrive as well, that's featured throughout this score. And it's that signature tone that ties the whole thing together. It's that identifiable sound that unifies the score and makes it sort of his own. This score, or I guess album in a sense, makes the top of my list because I can't think of an album that shattered my expectations more than this one. And while I haven't enjoyed his other scores quite as much as this one, it only takes one to make the list. So this one takes the cake for now. We're only halfway through 2016. Plenty more albums to come. Thank you for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe to the channel. The typical schedule over here is new album reviews every Friday, new track reviews every Wednesday. We will be right back on schedule coming up this Wednesday with a new track review. If you have a question or a comment for me about my top 5 list or not, you can comment below this video. You could tweet at me at discernreviews. You could send me an email, discernreviews@gmail.com. What are your top 5 favorite releases from this year so far? Did you listen to any of the albums on my list? Maybe we have the same top 5 list. I highly doubt that, but a man can dream, right? Anyway, have a good day. Hope this helps. See ya.